welcome to Just an Hour, which is, I think, the last one of the semester.
Hmm.
And as you know, these are these informal conversations around ideas related to academia, succeeding academia, all kinds of research, all kinds of different things. It's a collaboration between the three vice deans, Betty, Iveta, and as well as Betty, Iveta, and myself. Just some quick announcements. The all of the previous Just an Hour are available on the My Education Hub. Also, if you haven't been a part of the Tuesday series of Gen AI conversations, those are also available at the My Education Hub. Just want to do actually a quick shout out to Jennifer, Janelle, and Jim, the three J's who who sort of stepped up and took this on. So really, really appreciated. This was something we just had like an informal conversation, and next thing we know, we've had, I don't even know how many, 10, 8 or 10 of these conversations now.
Yeah.
And also thanks to all the people who have joined into those conversations. They have been fascinating sort of discussions. I mean, what I've loved is that the discussions have not just focused on Gen AI, they've gone into broader issues of academic integrity and ethics, and how does this change the nature of like academic knowledge. So it's been great. So thank you. Also on My Education Hub, we now have a new page. So thank you, Derek, for that. On faculty and guest talks on the career development page. Um, Anything else, Betty, that you want to add before we jump into the topic for today?
Oh, I think that's it. Thanks for the intro. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, so on to our last just an hour for this academic year. And so as we come to a close of this sort of academic year, what we wanted, Betty and I were discussing what would be the topic of this session. And we realized that, we've been actually doing this since September of 2022. We have had 39 episodes of Just an Hour. So that's 39 hours of, people who have joined us in these conversations. And so, so that's really exciting to know that. And we've covered a whole variety of topics. So what I did was I took
Mhm.
all the titles and threw that at Claude. And I said, like, what are some major themes that we have covered? And it's fascinating to see what Claude came up with. So it's, things like faculty and student introductions, which is spotlight different faculty members, doctoral students, and postdoctoral fellows within MLFTC, which were, I think, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, almost 8 of these episodes focused on that. One of the big ones was research themes and directions around various research themes, new research directions, emerging areas of interest. Well, Gen AI featured pretty heavily in some of those as well, but also transdisciplinary scholarship, issues of DEI, and so on. So quite a few episodes devoted to that. We also devoted quite a few sessions to academic partnerships and collaborations, focusing on how one can build these partnerships both within faculty, but also with community groups and others, and opportunities for co-authoring, both within the institution and externally. Of course, given ASU, we had a lot of topics around educational innovation and practices, innovative teaching practices, creative approaches to education, ed tech, and post-COVID educational innovations, which I think Serpi sort of led that discussion. And then finally, we also had sessions devoted to academic career and professional development, around publishing, navigating tenure on postdoctoral life, publishing strategies, institutional policies, and so on. So a wide range of topics have been covered over the past almost 2 years, I would say. And I mean, speaking for myself, and I think, Betty, you would agree that this has been sort of a highlight of the work that we have done together,
Hmm.
both organizing these conversations and then how these conversations emerged, and the number of people who have participated from both within MLFTC and outside of as well. Some of our graduates have been part of these conversations. So it's been wonderful. I don't know if you want to add anything more, Betty, before we move to a more open discussion.
No, just that it was Punya's idea to, I guess you used Claude to help you organize or come up with categories of topics. And it's great looking through it. It's a great way of organizing them. And I had forgotten about some of the topics that we addressed. It's a really impressive range of different kinds of um, work that faculty are doing, faculty and students, and I think relevant topics. So, yeah, I just want to thank all of you who've participated in one form or another. I know personally I've learned a lot about what's going on and what everyone's doing in the college too, which has been a real plus for me personally. So, yeah.
Um, I think that what we wanted for this discussion was really to look forward to when now, this is the time when we start, over the summer, we start planning for fall. We have been, we have a list. I mean, one of the interesting things is that we just have so many different ideas that come from people and that we think of that it's hard to fit all of them into one semester. But we thought this was also an opportunity to hear from all of you about topics that were most interesting to you, where you would like to see, which direction you would like to see this just in our conversations go, so that we can take some notes and use that as a way of thinking about how we do this come fall.
Yeah, and we had a few prompts. I mean, but it's really going to be an open conversation. We thought that, we could start if you can recall, for example, topics of previous Justin hours that you thought were interesting or particularly relevant, that maybe prompts an idea for something we can sponsor in the future or other sorts of topics. And of course, we're always interested in suggestions for other hosts, or if you personally would like to host a session and organize a group of participants, that would be great too. So yeah. Oh, can you share the Claude analysis in the chat? I think
Yeah,
it's too big for chat. Can you do parts of it? Yeah.
I'll do it in chunks.
Okay. Yeah.
I got it. Thanks.
Just as a reminder. So while Punya's working on that, any thoughts? This is just brainstorming, so feel free to just jump in verbally or type something in the chat.
Actually, wait to type something in the chat because I am monopolizing the chat right now. I'm on a roll here.
Oh, look at this. Yeah. Well, Felicia actually posted a comment.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah. So it sounds like you're, Felicia, saying yes to repeating a couple of the topics that we've already done, huh?
Yeah, I would probably agree that I know like the whole child. Um, we it seems like MLFCC's absorbed some new organizations, and it might be good to check in to see what have they been doing in the past 6 months or a year or whatever. So I think a check in periodically on some of these new organizations that we've acquired would be really helpful.
It might be good if there's a way with the new organizations, how can we participate with them, or what, who are they, what are they doing, and how can we assist, or, what do they need from us? So maybe a call for faculty to engage.
Could be interesting to highlight the way that we are collaborating with people across the university as well, like our Learning Engineering Institute and Learning Enterprise, all of those type of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that given that we've been doing this for 2 years, revisiting some of these topics, I think makes sense because, some of these topics are perennial, as we have seen even in the JAH sessions, we repeat, like you guys have been repeating the Tuesday morning and afternoon, and the conversations, even though the topic is the same, the conversations can be very different and valuable at the same time. So that's a great idea.
Yeah, Derek, the presentations by award winners. I was thinking of that this past year, I think we had all of them come for a chat in just an hour, which was nice, but really tight in terms of, the amount of time. So are you thinking about longer sessions or any other thoughts about that, Derek?
Or you could maybe do like a panel or something, with like a group of, it doesn't have to be one session per winner. It could be like somehow grouped together as like these all won an award for this kind of research or something like that. Here's like a, short little presentations. Maybe that's how you did it already. I don't know, but.
Well, for award winners outside of or awards outside of our college. We haven't done much, I don't think, Punya. I don't see those on our list. I don't remember
No, I
any.
don't think
That's a
so.
great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Like especially like this AERA, we had a few like with the EDD, so the qualitative research sake, that would have been great to have a session on that. I mean, one of the things that we've tried to do, and I think have not succeeded as well as we'd have liked, is involve more doctoral students in these conversations, because I personally feel like this is such an important part of sort of learning by osmosis, being present in these conversations and just listening and learning from that. We have been posting it on the doc students Canvas group and so on, but I think the level of participation has not been as much as we would have liked. So that's a push that we would like to have. The sessions that we have had with our doctoral students have been great. If you remember the one we had recently with a few of our doctoral students talking about their research, that was fabulous.
Mhm. And I appreciate Amanda also has a comment about enjoying hearing what work other faculty as well are doing. And we've done a few of those around topics like the STEM, folks with STEM grants and things, but more of that, and you've suggested some themes, Amanda. That sounds really, really appropriate. Thank you.
They're all great ideas.
So, Hung, you're talking about a regular series of brown bag seminars discussing more in depth the research that we're working on. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I really like Derek's idea, but I think that is more about the research that we are working on. And I don't know, but I think that the topics of this section, just 1 hour, are very diverse and varied. So focusing more on research would be, as I imagine, would be more something like a series of research related topics, maybe. So, and another idea related to that is also, I would like to see, faculty and scholars in person when we are discussing. So that would be great to have a hybrid section, or maybe something like that when we have a chance to sit down together and then talk about similar research interests, and we can exchange ideas around that as well. Yeah, but I'm not sure whether that's part of just an hour things that we are discussing, because I know that topics very different. We can talk on something unrelated to research, but also related to research as well. Yeah.
So you're thinking some of these might be a separate series that we could organize too. I mean, we haven't tended to have just an hour be like a faculty member presenting on an individual project, but more a group of people on a theme.
I don't know, but I haven't seen such kind of series that I saw in other universities, the kind of brown bag discussion focusing more on research related topics. But here it's very interesting that we have just an hour sessions covering a wide variety of topics, including research as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, something like collaborations and future plans of doing something and international work or something like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I think that's a great idea. I think to give a little bit of context, maybe very might be useful, which is how this came to be. So one of the things was that, at MLFTC, we are spread out across multiple campuses. So there always had been this feeling that we feel disconnected from each other. And guess what? We had a global pandemic, which sort of made things even more disconnected from one another. And so one of the things that we kept hearing is that we need some opportunities to make this connection. So the Just an Hour series sort of emerged out of that, not as much. So one of the goals was, yes, we would get to talk to each other and so on. And that was an important goal as well, not as much featuring research per se, but sort of broadly a discussion around ideas and the work that we do, whether it's teaching, research, and so on. So that's been sort of the format. There is definitely a space for a more focused, sort of research-oriented brown bags or series like that, which I think is a critical component of what it means to be in a research one institution and so on. As to whether just an hour is the vehicle for that or that is a separate thing, I think we need to still figure out. And I don't have a clear answer for that, but I also wanted to contextualize a little bit as to how this series came to be. It was addressing this sense of disconnection that people were feeling from each other. And I think that this has gone some of the way, not necessarily all of the way, but some of the way in making us more present to each other. But this is not to say that the brown bag or more research focused pieces cannot be there or should not be there.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, Betty, I would love for us to sort of talk a little bit about the last comment that Amanda put there around leadership in teaching and expanding service opportunities for faculty. And so that to us has always been sort of a tension here about how much of this is around processes of the university, like college processes versus a broader discussion on ideas. And we have sort of stayed away from the process conversation quite a bit, seeing that there are other avenues for doing that. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Betty, because I think that's a thing that we have talked about, that this is different in some ways from those conversations.
Right. Although I don't know, Amanda, do you want to say a little bit more about that comment? Because I'm not quite sure how you're thinking about it as just
I'm
an
not
hour
sure.
topic.
I'm not sure I've given it enough thought to answer the question. My dogs are barking. Apologies. That FedEx truck is hard to assist. Just I feel like when I was sitting on the PC, I just remember seeing such a vast just differences between the way that people laid out their narrative, thinking that it looks like maybe people don't really have a full understanding of what they are doing that might count in a certain way, or how to frame it in a way that highlights the work that they're doing. So just supporting in that way. I mentioned I had done that at previous institutions, led that charge, and I remember it was really helpful to, especially the non-tenure, because tenure track always gets a lot of support, I feel like, but non-tenure track, if you have a mentor, things are great, but wow.
Yeah, no, I think that's really helpful. I think kind of to, agree with what Punya said, we thought just an hour was somewhat different from, say more technical or procedural things. On the other hand, I could imagine sessions where we invited some folks to talk about their own leadership in teaching kind of around that theme to inspire people to say, oh yeah, I mean, that's what it looks like to be a leader in teaching. So it's not, this is how you write it, but here's what people are doing,
That's great. That's a great idea.
Yeah. So, and we do want to make sure that these sessions are inviting to all faculty and all students, not that people will think they're more aimed at one kind of position or one kind of group than another. So any additional, session or suggestions like that would be really great. And so Derek's scholarship of teaching and learning.
I love that topic.
Mhm.
That's one that I think we had on our list early on. I think somehow we never really focused on that, but I think that's a critical one particularly for colleges of education, where we are always looking at our practice through a very reflective lens, and that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there's, in addition to award winners, things like folks who've been recently promoted, Amanda, or tenured and promoted, to hear more about their work and sort of celebrate what they're doing and give them that recognition is great. I do wonder, I don't know how much time people have to spare for different sort of sessions, but I do wonder if there's things that we can do in just an hour, assuming that we think the original purpose still is important, as opposed to, say, another brown bag series where we do something slightly different. It just seems like we never have enough time for
Right.
all the topics that we hope to cover. And some of these might be, say, a series may be sponsored by the Faculty Recognition Committee even, you know. So yeah. Are any of you involved with other groups who might be doing work that would be valuable to feature in something like just an hour or another session, or another type of session?
I mean, what I have really enjoyed is when we have had co-hosts, like people who host, like Iveta hosted that. It was great for Betty and me to just sit back and chill. And let somebody else worry about the wait time.
Very funny. I think it's a good idea to maybe invite people to co-host sometimes, because there are lots of personalities at Teachers College who could be great
That's
at
true.
co-hosting.
And that would be another way to highlight people, right?
Yeah.
You know, help folks get to know each other, if they serve as hosts. I know I liked when we did the whole child session, Bridget, is it Bridget kind of took over? They sort of, and Tammy took over hosting their own session, and I thought that was great too. So yeah.
What other ideas? I mean, format-wise, what else could we change or think through? I'm just curious.
I was curious what else you had thought about in terms of how to get doctoral students more engaged. Did you have ideas for how to maybe do that? 'Cause I agree that that would be really great if we do it.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is making sure that the announcements do go out to them. What we learned is, and that's easier done for faculty and staff than for doctoral students, is to send it out as a calendar invite. And so what happens then, it just shows up on your calendar. I think we get a couple of people showing up just because it's there on the calendar. And they're like, yeah, I have an hour, I might as well hop in, which is great, right? I mean, because all of us are busy. We totally get that. That's harder to do with the doc students, to make it a calendar invite for a variety of reasons. So we end up posting it on the Canvas site and so on. And the other thing that we have tried to do is also make some topics which are more relevant to doctoral students directly. So featuring their research, always asking when we get groups to say, hey, if you have grad students working on this project with you, please make sure that they join as well. So we've made some moves in that direction. But like I said, I mean, that's a group I feel like I would love to see more participation there, because I think these are in some ways very critical conversations for them, if not to be a part of, but just to be listening in. I remember the one that we had around the Spencer grants and so on, and Betty, where I think the doc students learned so much, those who were there. It's like, wow, I didn't know that you are supposed to read the RFP and sort of echo it back. And, those are these little tips and tricks which you will never learn in a class or even when you're doing your own research, which I think become critically important to just be listening in on. So I would love to get some ideas about how we could do better with that. And maybe I'll put Nicole on the spot, because she's our doc student rep right here, and see what thought she has on it.
Yeah, I think there definitely would be a lot of interest if people knew about it. I'm joining TCDC next in the fall, so I can ask them about ways we can communicate, maybe in our newsletter, maybe send out an announcement the day of as well. Maybe have a poster in the grad space. I think it's a matter of people being aware of it, because I think there is an interest in people building community for sure.
Yeah, I put in the chat that we host the DRC 4 times a year, and we get about 150 students in the EDD program to attend. And it's pretty specific to our EDD program, but we could definitely advertise that and bring in students who have come to the DRC, and they could talk about the benefits of, they break into groups and have co-mentoring sessions and support each other through the dissertation process. So it's pretty focused on the EDD program, but we could certainly advertise it pretty heavily. And it's a model for maybe how to get doc students engaged and continuing on their research outside of the normal coursework that they do.
I think that's a great idea. And I just wanted to say, I got back from my sabbatical in Finland just recently, so I spent the whole fall semester there. And in Finnish universities, doctoral students you are not allowed to refer to doctoral students as students. They should be referred to as doctoral scholars and researchers. And it's done very specifically not to create these dichotomies between the students and the faculty, but to create more, I guess, open and cohesive community, right? And begin treating doctoral students as colleagues. And I think even kind of repositioning like this would, I think, probably increase doctoral participation in events like this.
I completely agree with that, Iveta. I think that one of the things that I've always felt is that at least at MLFTC, we draw these lines in the sand, which are just meaningless. And for instance, at Michigan State, doctoral students would serve on search committees.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a critical thing to be able to see from the inside how academic sausage is made. It's huge. And it's the same way. I mean, we have all college meetings. We don't invite our doctoral students to that. I don't see why not. So we draw these lines in the sand, which I think are very exclusionary and just wrong. And I feel very strongly about that. And I'm glad that you mentioned that from the Finland universities, they're doing it the right way, for sure. So, Nicole, quick question. So this is being posted on the Canvas group, right? Do you see that there? So that's
Let me pull up where it comes from, because I do get an email, but it doesn't go in my main inbox. It goes to a separate one. I have to search just an hour in my inbox to find it.
Okay. See, I think that's where I don't think we have cracked that. Yeah,
it's through Canvas, and I got it 3 days ago from MLFTC PhD programs. But I'm wondering if it comes from TCDC as well, if that would
No, I hope so.
Yeah. And maybe if there's more doctoral students who are involved in presenting, that might, especially ones who are further along, I feel like people in my first year cohort would love to learn from people in their third or fourth year to have an idea of what to expect. So that might be something to draw people's attention as well.
So Nicole, the one possibility then maybe is to, when you are a part of TCDC, is to solicit hosts and topics.
Yeah.
Right? That could come, and maybe Betty, this is another way of thinking about it, is that, this is right now, you and I and Iveta sort of planning this is to make sure that somebody from TCDC is a part of those discussions.
Yeah, I was just
right. I
thinking
mean, we
that
should
actually.
practice what we preach. I mean, here we are saying we should treat them equally, and then we don't have any representation from there. I think that's would be a simple enough thing to do. And with, I think, if made part of the organizational process itself, you start getting ideas that we wouldn't have thought of otherwise, which is great, but also becomes much more inclusive because there is a sense of belonging then. Otherwise, it's something that is being done by others as opposed to something that we are doing together.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely. Great idea.
One thing that comes to mind when Nicole was talking about how she has to search through her email to try to find just an hour because she's very motivated to be here. What we found with the the dissertation research conversations is we use the MLFTC events group to help us manage that. So all the registration can go into MLFTC events, and then they send out the reminders, which kind of gets around this whole idea of just having things that sit on calendars. So we found that that's been helpful in getting better attendance at our event, because it's not mandatory. So I don't know if that overcomplicates it or not, but we found that the events people can really streamline all that, and they can send reminders and they can do registration, and maybe that's too formal for what you're trying to do, but we found it to be helpful.
I think that's the concern there, because I mean, you do DRC 4 times a year. Those are massive events for the EDD program, right? And I think it's evolved a little bit over time, and I think it's become more optional and so on. But for that, I can see a more formal RSVP and all of that set up. We've tried to keep this as simple as we can with the support that we have.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah, that's a bit of a challenge, possibly.
Yeah.
I think there's also a lot of engagement for the DRCs by faculty to get their students, like to share with their students, to get them to go. And I wonder if there might be any way to do that with just an hours too, to get, faculty to promote it more with their doctoral students in classes that they teach, or anyone they're advising or something like that.
I did my part here, so.
But that's true. That's a good suggestion, Derek. Yeah. So
I
how
think
has
it's a broader
another
question of also getting more faculty to join in. I mean,
true.
it's not that we are getting like 60% of faculty showing up for each one, right? I mean, we have a good session if we get like 30 people, So I think there's penetration or sort of spread there as well.
Yeah.
I almost wondered too, I was thinking around, I don't know, in terms of the dates and times in which we're chosen. Obviously, Fridays typically are the ones that are more open. I also wonder too, as the academic calendar for meetings is being developed for 24-25 academic year, I think there's a draft now of all the meetings that are occurring. I'm not sure if there's some dates that potentially you might get higher attendance, maybe after a faculty meeting ends. So I don't know, just in terms of looking at the overview of calendar, if there's any specific ones that you may get better attendance if you schedule it after a particular event ends, and then encourage it. Because I know before, Punya, Betty, you had, I think maybe one of them, your just an hour was coming after our D1 teacher prep. And so then we were able to encourage faculty to join directly after, just maybe thinking if there's events that are occurring before, then we could highly encourage from there.
Yeah, the more ways we can get the word out so people, are aware and, pay attention. That's great. Yeah, maybe what we should do is ask people, ask the D1 and D2 meetings that they announce this. When we had the D2 meeting, was that just last week? I guess we did promote the last session, and I think that might have been helpful. So we didn't, you are suggesting, there's a comment from you in the chat about other platforms to enhance interaction. And you're thinking that would be something we would integrate with these sessions, integrate into Zoom, or how would that work? Or afterwards when we post the videos?
Yeah, there is this tension in the design of just an hour, which I think, not to make it too formal so that we don't necessarily ask people to have slides and presentations, to keep it more conversational, with this tension of we need to, what can we take away from it in a more concrete way? There's always that sort of a little lack of clarity on that in my mind as well,
Yeah.
because we want to not make it too onerous for whoever we invite, that, we send them some questions and it's pretty open as a process to do, and not to make it a thing that people have to prepare for necessarily.
Yeah, I think folks have appreciated that, the lack of preparation or need for preparation. So, yeah.
Maybe the interaction wise, you could do something as simple as if you're talking about all the things that people are doing, maybe do, since you're already using Zoom, do breakout sessions or breakout rooms real quick for 10 minutes. So then they can have those little conversations and then come back just to get more exposure to it. Just an hour, speed dating type thing.
So we'll have just a minute in the middle of just an hour.
There you go. Perfect.
Oh, I love
Exactly.
it. Perfect.
It's a jam.
That's,
It's a
I
jam
love
session
it.
in the just an hour.
There you
I
go.
love it. That's hilarious. Just a minute. We definitely have to do that. That's so
Yes.
cool.
No, that's a great idea because I think the smaller groups lend themselves to conversation. And I mean, so that might be a suggestion, Betty, that might be kind of cool, is we could have whoever we invite as hosts to actually have a couple of questions relevant to their topic, which they would like discussed by the people who are present.
Ah,
And that would be the basis of the jam sessions, right?
you already have a name?
Just a minute, jam, that's it.
I know.
So, and it works. Jam session works too in more than one way.
It does. It certainly does.
No,
I'm
I
getting that
really
down.
like that because what that means is that the guests also get invested in it in terms of like what would they like to get from the group, and allows for smaller group conversation, then some input back. It sort of builds in interactivity and engagement because once the groups come back, somebody will report out what they talked about, and it just builds this conversation rather than it being whoever is the host asking the questions and getting some responses. It never truly becomes a conversation if you think about it. And this might be the way to make that happen. Great idea. Love it.
Yeah, I love it too.
Thank you, Amanda. So I have to tell you that Betty and I were going back and forth when we were designing these, like we wanted to create something and like, what should we call it? I mean, we had academic wit, we had all kinds of like, and then it was like, just an hour. And the moment that word, that phrase entered our consciousness, you're like, yep, it has to be that because that's it. All we're asking of you is just an hour. And of course, we beat it to death in every session by repeating it over and over again.
No.
I think we have slowed down a bit on that now, but yeah.
It's all in the name. Great.
That's a great idea. So we could look at a structure of, a conversation for around 30 minutes, followed by like a 5-7 minute jam session around some prompt that the guests have come up with, and then report back. And I think that just leads, and then, sort of summing up for the last 10-15 minutes. That'll be perfect. That'll be great.
That'd be a nice variety. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think the barriers for conversation drop when you're in a group of 3 or 4 people. And just random assignment to groups. I mean, we don't even have to make it super fancy, we just make random groups.
Well, you can just automate that, right? On Zoom, just assigning people. Yeah.
But I just wanted to tell you, on their statistics that you lose half of the people when you put them in breakout rooms. Just something to consider.
I know, that thought crossed my mind, Iveta. Yeah, would they leave, never come back? I think if you automatically assign them, at least they'll just pop right into it, right?
Oh, many people just leave, I think. There is some statistics. They just don't want to go into the small groups. But we can experiment with that and see what happens.
Worth a shot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the people who come to just an hour really want to be here though. So
right.
They would want to jump over and
Hopefully.
come back.
Yeah.
Hopefully, right. That's exactly.
I think we can experiment.
For sure.
All right. I think, Betty, we should change gears now and ask people what their plans are for summer.
That's a great idea. Plans for summer, folks.
What fun.
Yeah, fun. Come on, somebody must have plans for fun. Oh, going
Going
to Spain, Derek. Whoa. Have you been there before?
When I was a teenager, so this will be fun.
Where
We're going for
will
a
you be
wedding.
Oh, wow.
And, it's in Barcelona, so
Ooh,
it'll be fun.
Sagrada
Wow, that sounds
Familia.
great.
You got to see the fever dream of this guy.
Nice.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Barcelona is a lovely.
Amanda, you're going to teach 3 courses? Wow. Yellowstone. That sounds cool. I haven't been there since I was a teenager. Wow. Is PV Mexico Puerto Vallarta? Jim, what's that?
Yeah, Puerto Vallarta. I'm gonna
Now
have my
you were
kids, keep my college kids connected to us. You give them a free trip, they'll go anywhere. Punya knows that.
I do know that. I do know that. I do know that.
That sounds great.
Disney World. There you
Disney
go.
World. That's always fun. I haven't been there in a long time either.
Yeah, that was the one
So-
thing I told my kids I would never take them to Disney World. I said,
Oh,
take you, drop you at the front gates, and I'll wait outside. You can go have fun and come back.
oh, so you've never been, huh?
I've never been.
Yeah, it's a cultural experience.
I
Yeah.
know. I know.
Yeah, I haven't been there in a long time.
Yeah, my kids were deprived. What can I say? But Barcelona is great. They're lovely walkable.
Mhm.
Love it. Yeah, I've been once and been wanting to go back.
Are you fluent in Spanish, Derek?
Fluent, definitely not. No, I took
Yeah.
Spanish in high school, but how much
Oh.
about it remember?
I know.
So this was interesting. So I was in Morocco last week and I was using ChatGPT the entire time to translate stuff.
I was gonna say, yeah, I was just gonna
I would
say, yeah.
look at a menu. We would be sitting at a dinner and I couldn't understand a word because it would either be in Arabic or in French. And I would just take a picture and I'd say, translate it for me. Or I would say even better, I would say, find the vegetarian options here. That's it. Just translate those. Forget the rest.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh
my
yeah, it's
gosh.
crazy. Like how, I mean, it took me a day to realize that I could do that, which is like, duh, right? But the moment that hit, it's easy. And
I actually, yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I was these presentations where they were presenting in French, and they had this student sitting right behind me, sort of translating in my ear, but the slides were all in French. So as they were translating, I would take a picture of the slide and say, translate this. And so I could hear this person speak what the speaker was saying in my ear, and then could get the translations of the slides along the way.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty, I mean, and it was clear to me that we are just around the corner where I would be able to just hold my phone up and have a headphone and be listening live to the translation as the person was speaking.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've read something recently that people are forecasting a real drop in enrollment in foreign language classes because the assumption will be you won't need to know another language. You'll just be able to use some kind of translator AI. So I didn't realize we were that close already.
No, we pretty much are. I mean, there's two ways of looking at it though, because so one is we are losing a lot of native languages, like, regional languages across the world because everybody is speaking English. So in some ways, this will actually lead to the strengthening of those languages because you don't need to learn English. You can function fully well and then switch to English when you need to. Like the AI will do that for you. So that's the benefit of that. I think the loss is going to be the knowing a different language is not just learning linguistic symbols, it's also looking at a way of looking at the world that languages offer us. I think that's the part that we might lose in the process.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thanks everyone for all your input. These ideas are super helpful and will be great as we move forward to planning. Hopefully sometime soon, so we can get an agenda out a little bit earlier for next year. But we may be calling on some of you to help host or run sessions too. So hopefully you will say yes, if so. But anyway, thanks for attending for a great year. Thanks, Punya, for hosting and planning along with me. This has been fun. So hope you all enjoy your summer, whether it be traveling or teaching or what else. Hopefully you'll all have a chance to get away a bit out of the heat of Phoenix, if in fact you are here in Phoenix. And yeah, so have a great afternoon and weekend too. Hope to see some of you at graduation.
Better
Oh, yeah, see you at
Punya, huge.
graduation. That'll be fun.
I
Mhm.
wanted to say huge thanks to Punya and Betty for organizing and creating the space and time for all of us. It's been really, really amazing and meaningful.
Thank you. No, it's been
Thank you.
fast. It's been
Yeah,
fun.
it's been great. So thanks much.
Thank
you
you.
all.
You
Have a good
see
one.
All
you
right.
at graduation.
Bye.
See you then.
Graduation.
Bye-bye.
Bye.